everybody, I'm Lal. Welcome back to Sustainable Jungle, where we share sustainability tips, tricks, hacks, products, brands, and stories to better our planet. And today we're going to clarify two concepts that are often conflated. To preface this educational and sometimes I hope funny video, is we're diving into here the differences and similarities between something that is biodegradable and something that is compostable. Yes, I know, both terms concern the breakdown of matter, but in actuality there are important differences, and by not understanding those in practice can mean you end up contributing more waste despite your good eco intentions, and we don't want that. So what's biodegradable? Let's back it up a step. What is degradable? Well, technically everything degrades, meaning eventually everything breaks down, but it doesn't always biodegrade, because that can only happen when matter breaks down into its natural elements. Petroleum-based plastics, heavy metals, chemical-based materials, those fall into the former category of degradable. They never fully break down into their natural elements, just smaller and smaller pieces like those microplastics that we now eat on a daily basis. But this chat is not about biodegradable's ugly sister, so let's focus on the star of the show. At its most basic, something that can biodegrade simply means it can break down into water, carbon dioxide, and biomass. In other words, organic matter. So long as you have hungry microorganisms like bacteria and fungi in the right environment, the right temperature, oxygenation, moisture, you can achieve biodegradability. But this is where things get murky. Great, something's biodegradable, but how long does it actually take to biodegrade into its natural elements? That rate all depends on conditions. So a landfill, for instance, has all the good stuff, toxic chemicals, pollutants, heavy metals, which surprisingly doesn't make for a cozy home for a little fungi. That biodegradable toothbrush you bought ain't going nowhere fast, like 104-5 years. I just pulled that number, I have no idea. But the point is this, the time it takes for something to biodegrade is key to the whole idea of something being biodegradable. If you can't dispose of it in the right environment that'll actually allow it to biodegrade, then it's kind of meaningless, right? And then there's the whole other issue of anaerobic breakdown of biodegradables in landfills and oceans, and that just means organic matter that breaks down without oxygen creates methane, not carbon dioxide. Problem with that? Well, it just happens to be 25 times more potent greenhouse gas, which is probably why a couple of years ago the FTC introduced guidelines of biodegradable standards. I'll pop a link below to it, but just to summarize the definition for a product or package to call itself biodegradable, it must completely break down and return to nature within a reasonably short period of time after customary disposal. There's a lot going on. Let's dissect. Completely break down and return to nature, ruling out the whole microplastics. Great. But it doesn't talk about leaching toxic chemicals in the breakdown process, okay? Reasonably short period of time, vague, yes, until the FTC recently said that is a 1-year period. Good. After customary disposal, well, that basically just means that a brand can't claim that an item is biodegradable if it's normally disposed of in the solid waste stream. In other words, land up in landfill where there is no chance of breaking down within 1 year. Hello, bamboo toothbrush. Great, we appreciate the sentiment, FTC, but how do you actually intend to police disposal habits of consumers? Someone who doesn't give a could just trash anything, which kind of begs the question, is nothing degradable? What do you think about this? Is the FTC doing all they can? Let me know in the comments. Now, before we get into biodegradable's compostable cousin, I quickly want to touch on biodegradable plastics. It was actually a buzzword in the 80s, and like many 80s trends, I'm looking at you, parachute pants. It would have been best to stay there, especially considering there was no way to scientifically prove something was biodegradable until 2002. What? Anyways, technology has progressed so that it is possible to adapt organic materials to function in much the same way as plastics. Now, biodegradable plastic is a big step in the right direction, but there's a couple of caveats. I love caveats, not. Yes, biodegradable plastics can fully break down into their natural elements, but this is something I mentioned earlier. They may also be laden with toxic chemicals which can leach. Also, some companies blend biodegradable plastic with regular plastic and then place a clever caveat of made with biodegradable plastic on the label. Since they're not technically actually calling the package biodegradable, FTC can't do much about it. And that's probably why California made it illegal to label any plastic as biodegradable. Good move. Okay, what does compostable mean? Well, think of compostability as the green standard of biodegradation. If a material or product is compostable, it's automatically biodegradable, but not everything that is biodegradable is compostable. Okay, composting accelerates biodegradation. It speeds up the breakdown process. So rather than biodegradation taking anywhere from 6 months to 10,000 years. It could be 12 weeks. And this entire process takes place in a compost pile, indoor compost bin, or industrial composting facilities. It cannot occur in landfills, nor natural waterways or oceans. The FTC also provided guidelines on when a brand or company can call a product or package compostable. Basically, it must break down into completely non-toxic components. And this whole process must not only not harm the environment, but benefit it by yielding usable compost created in safe and a timely manner, about the same time as whatever materials are being composted with it, but not more than 180 days. So if you throw a plant-based phone case into your home compost, but it takes twice as long to decompose as, say, that banana peel, then it doesn't meet that test, and it can't be classified as home compostable. I mean, home composters are generally good for like paper, food waste, and yard trimmings, but they don't reach high enough temperatures required for things like phone cases, coffee cups, garbage bags made out of bioplastics. Those items need to go to an industrial composting facility, because unless you have the right environment, they're not going to go anywhere. Like I said earlier, how you actually dispose of something is the difference between safely returning a product to the earth versus waste and methane production in a landfill. So to clarify, the difference between compostable and biodegradable is the time it takes a product or package to actually break down into its natural elements. So now that we've covered the basics of what is compostable and what is biodegradable, how do you know you're buying qualifies as one or both of those? Because there's a lot of greenwashing around. Well, the easiest way is to look for trustworthy labels and certifications that verify compostability. In the US and Canada, there's two main certifications. There's USDA BioPreferred and BPI, or Biodegradable Products Institute. If you see a product or packaging that has this certification, then you know it breaks down in 180 days or less, or 1 year in the case of something that is biodegradable. But right now, doesn't apply to home composting pile. Sorry about that. If you're not sure about a product, try searching for it in Biodegradable Product Institute's product catalog. In the EU, there's no certification for biodegradability, but there are two third-party agencies who will certify a product industrial or home compostable. That's TÜV Austria, and I think the other one is DIN Certco. But these aren't legally binding, FYI, and there's also no obligation on a brand to disclose how much bio-based material is actually in a product. I'll pop a link in the description to our deep dive on this topic below, where you can find all the links to these resources. And finally, if there's no certification, which is like, 99% of the time, it comes down to a case of actually knowing what the product or packaging is made of. Once you know that, you can discern whether it belongs in your own compost, an industrial composter, or the garbage. So what's the takeaway here? Well, compostable products are king. No, queen. But it's up to us to make sure that they are actually composted. The problem is infrastructure. Wherefore art thou infrastructure? Well, for all your non-home compostable bioplastics, check out Biocycle's Find a Composter to find your nearest municipal composting facility. And you can also check out Share Waste app, which connects you with people in your area who actually want your organic waste. I also suggest reading those labels with a healthy dose of skepticism. Look for certifications and just know what the product is made of. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button below. I'm Lyle from Sustainable Jungle, and happy composting, friends.